Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay, so my talk is going to be about the abyss. And I know that sounds very on the script, but I'm going to tell you a story, and hopefully we're going to be coming to terms with this idea of what I call the abyss in contemporary music. Now, I want to play something first. So yes, the question, is this classical music? It doesn't sound like that. It doesn't quite sound like that, but I'm going to prove it to you that it's actually classical music, and it's by a living contemporary composer. So the story is, how do we get to this point? This is actually, by the way, coming from a trailer that you can find it on YouTube. It's for a video game called Borderlands 2. Some of you may know this. And it's actually surprising when I saw the trailer. Someone told me, you know, just look at the trailer. Because I knew the piece already, where the music is actually coming from. And it's, whoa, I mean, how come they're actually using a composition which is really classical music for something like this? Okay, now, I need to really go back about 200, 250 years so that we can know how we actually got to this point. So, there is a term that we know as the common practice. Now, the common practice can be defined as a period between, say, the second half of the 18th century all the way to the beginning of the 20th century. And we call it so because it is a moment where you have many composers and many artists and musicians writing in a similar style, in a similar musical language, using very similar musical forms. This is the time of the sonata, and the symphony, and the concerto, and the form that we know today as the opera. So let's go to the next slide. Of course, maybe we can scroll down a little bit. And it's trying to make Mozart even more cool than he was. I don't know if you've seen the music, the movie Amadeus. Now, this example of the music, the common practice is, of course, made of hundreds, potentially hundreds of composers. Now, the reason I have this one in particular is because he may be the great pillar of the common practice in the second half of the 18th century. Of all the other composers, and I will also include another Austrian composer, Haydn, Mozart is really standing above anyone else. And he is the one who really crystallizes this style that we know today as classical music. When we listen to this kind of music, we say, oh yes, you know, that's the kind of music that sometimes they play on NPR, right? Or this is the music that my grandfathers, you know, they used to listen to. Or this is the music that if you go to a symphony concert, I'm going to be listening to. Okay, so now let's go to the next slide. And here we have another big pillar of the common practice. Of course, we know him. Okay, now, if we have a show of hands right now, and I ask you, how many of you do think that this music is beautiful? I'm not going to do it because I'm sure that maybe all of you are going to say, yes, I do like this music, right? It sounds, it's beautiful, you know, a beautiful, passionate music. Now, before I proceed, there is another very important element that is part of the common practice, and that is going to play a central role into what happens in the 20th century, and this is what we know as tonality. Now, tonality is kind of hard to describe. If I had 5 hours, I could probably give you an introduction to the concept of tonality, so I'll try to do it in about 2 minutes. We'll see. Now, I'm going to sing it slide from one note to another note, frequencies, something like this. And you can see that, of course, I'm just sliding in frequencies from one bottom note to another gold note. I'm just sliding up. Now imagine that then I create a grid. I'm going to only select some frequencies out of that. So that it is not going to be a slide anymore. It's going to be more like a scale, right? Going up in a escalator. So, so I'm only selecting some of the frequencies coming from that slide. Okay, and by doing that, I have a set of musical notes that I can use as a foundation for a composition. Okay, so yes, it is possible to actually compose something which is only using slides. Okay, but then you can also take and you can extract and you can select from that potentially infinite number of frequencies. You can select only some of those. Now, in music theory circles, we know this as the chromatic scale. When you go up very close frequencies. And then from those, you can even be more selective. And you can take only just a few of those and you can do something like dun, 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 dun. And this, of course, sounds very familiar to all of us, right? We've heard this, and if you know the movie, The Sound of Music, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, da, 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 ba, bum, 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 right? So it's actually teaching us in a movie what the scale within tonality is. Now, tonality, as we know it, then is actually extracting some of those notes, and it's going to make one of those notes, the most important one, it's going to become home base, and all of the other notes are going to be gravitating around that. And I can give you a very simple example, just improvising a melody. And you feel that the last note I sang is home bass, and I can just wrap it up right there, and that's the end of it. I don't need anything else. And I can also do something like and you're probably expecting that up, right? That note becomes the tonic, and that's where the concept of tonality comes from. Now, in the common practice, it's not just tonality, it's what we know as functional tonality. In functional tonality, every note of that collection of notes of that scale is going to serve a function. The tonic is, of course, home bass, and that one is going to be balanced out by the dominant. Now, if you go up the scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's the dominant. And if you keep going up, 6, 7, 8, which is the same as 1 just high. We call that an octave, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then you have the dominant right in between, well, kind of like in between. And then the other notes, they serve, different functions of lesser degree. But then the tonic, of course, is home base. And all of the other notes are going to be playing around the tonic. So this idea of function tonality is central to the common practice. I'm going to then bypass about 30 big names in the history of music, and then I'm going to move on to the next one, Richard Wagner. So if you look at the dates, you can see more or less the time period. Students here who may be familiar with that piece. I like to teach an analysis of this composition in particular for one of my courses. Now, he is another of the big pillars in the history of the common practice, in particular for the second half of the 18th century. Now, you could possibly, by looking at the names, try to guess the nationality of these composers. Mozart, you probably know that he was from anyone? Austria, right? And what about Beethoven? Wagner, also German. Okay, so I'm actually limiting myself to German and Austrian composers for a reason. Okay, and we'll see why in a second. So then what happens in the second half of the 20th century, some composers, they start to feel unhappy with this situation. They feel that they are being restricted in their potentials and the possibilities of music making. So they start to experiment. One of them was Claude Debussy, French composer, at the very end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century. Now I'm going to then bypass all of those and then move to the next composer, Arnold Schoenberg. Compare that with this music again. Sweepy melodies, really passionate music, very romantic, right? Romantic classical music. And then let's move on to the next one. Let's compare that. Okay, now there is a difference which is hard to tell if you're not really too familiar with this kind of music. And it also requires a little bit of musical training, but I can perhaps give you some insight into this. The music is more chromatic. Remember the term that I introduced just a few minutes ago, chromaticity or the chromatic scale? So this composer is actually writing in the same style as Wagner. He is, of course, younger, but he is doing more chromaticism, meaning that he's introducing more of the notes of the chromatic scale. So instead of being a melody like this, he may do something like by increasing that, he's actually moving forward the evolution of the common practice. But then he gets to a point at the beginning of the 20th century where he says, well, if I keep pushing this and I keep making my music more complex and more chromatic, I may get to the point where the idea of tonality, that home base, may be lost and may be destroyed. And instead of saying, well, I will not do that, and there were some contemporaries of his, like Richard Strauss, that they looked at this frontier and they said, looks interesting, but I'm not going to do it. And they turn around and they didn't go ahead. Schoenberg actually faced that. He said, I'm going to move ahead. I'm going to then move into the idea of atonality, creating music where there is no home base. You are free to use any of the notes of the chromatic scale, and you don't have that idea of the tonic and the dominant and all the other secondary functions of that scale. Okay, and we're going to be moving ahead to the next slide so we can hear the same composer. So I think now we can have a show of hands. How many of you do you think this is a beautiful composition? 1, 2, 3.5. Right? Yeah, so it's way less than 50%. Actually, I'm surprised. I was expecting even lower than that, right? So now, This is in part because we are so familiarized with all this strange music that's happening right now, particularly, in movie music, that we have all this very intense, complex music. But still, it's not the kind of music that you would just sit back and relax and listen to in Sunday afternoon. Okay? Now, Schoenberg actually thought that this was the future of music, that music was actually moving in this direction, and that at some point, maybe at the end of the 20th century or the beginning of the 21st century, even the janitor was going to be whistling a melody like this. Right, very strange. He really thought that was going to be the future of music. Now, in this composition, which is called Pierrot Lunaire, there is a technique that is also using, which is called Sprechstunde, and it is a combination of singing and speech. You can actually say that is sung speech or spoken singing. So instead of just singing something like "Happy Birthday to you," you may do something like "Happy Birthday to you." Okay, and of course it sounds kind of distorted and angular, but I think that was exactly his point. At this point, we start to see a separation between what audiences, general audiences, any person can appreciate and what composers are trying to do. And yes, he has a big following, and he is regarded as one of the great pillars of the music of the 20th century. But at the same time, we know for a fact that there were actual riots in the premieres of some of those compositions, as in actually having to call the police in because people from the audience were just jumping into the pit and fighting the musicians, and the musicians were just, firing people. So it was actually to that point. And I guess, maybe some of the performers didn't like his music, so they were just really happy to. In any case, so then he again faces another phenomenon. He says, well, I really think that this is the music, the kind of music I'm going to be doing now, but I'm having a problem. I find myself just struggling with trying to maintain and trying to have a cohesive sound with this kind of tonality. Because tonality provides you with a set of rules that you can rely on. You have to be inventive, if you will. You can rely on that system. And he said, well, since I don't rely on that anymore because my music is atonal, I need to reinvent the wheel. I need to, or invent a new wheel. And then he comes up with what we know as the 12-tone technique. And that evolved into what we know today as serialism. And serialism is the use of mathematical or numerical series of numbers, or graphs, or algorithms, or formulas to generate the order of the notes, and in some cases later on in the composition that is coming up, to also define and determine the order of the rhythms. Okay, so this piece next is the first fully composed 12-tone serial composition. Sounds kind of chaotic, right? It sounds almost like someone just sitting with the piano and improvising notes randomly. But if you look at the score, everything that piano is playing is exactly as notated. I could take the notes and feed that into a music notation program like Finalis or Delis, and it would have exactly the same sound. Well, not exactly. I mean, the pianist is trying to add some expression, but you get exactly the same rhythms and exactly the same notes. So everything is really programmed. Everything is determined to follow that series of 12 tones. It's a different way of organizing that 12-tone chromatic scale. Okay, now the next piece I'm going to be playing is by the French composer Pierre Boulez, and he takes the idea of serialism to an extreme. Now he's going to be serializing not only the order of the notes, but also the rhythms. When I was in college, I had a professor, a composition professor, who he loved to demonstrate a kind of composition where everything would be completely randomized, where the performer would have the choice of just improvising notes and the rhythms. And he would then play that back to back to a composition just like this, and they sounded exactly the same. So a composition where it's completely structured and everything is determined by series of numbers, and a composition that is completely unstructured or highly unstructured, and then you have these two extremes and you get the same results. And of course, imagine going to a concert and listening to 1 hour of music like this. I mean, who would actually want to do that? Well, I do. But, you know, I'm a contemporary music nerd. But of course, now we see this chasm between audiences and people who are not highly trained musicians and composers like Pierre Boulez, who is widely regarded as one of the great composers of the 20th century. And perhaps the greatest French composer of from 1970, more or less. Now, let's move on to the next composition. It's another example by Pierre Boulez, and this one is The Hammer Without a Master. Almost gives you the impression of being a random collection of notes using random rhythms, or maybe they're just improvising and they don't care about what actually happens. However, remember, everything is carefully notated. To the point, the rhythms are so carefully notated and they're so hard to play that usually, in order to record something like this, they have to record maybe 1 bar, say 5 seconds of music, and they have to stop before they actually do something wrong. And then they record the next 10 seconds of music, and they try 20 times to win that section, and then they record another 5 seconds, and then another 20 seconds, and then, you know, using editing, they put everything together. It's so hard because everything is carefully noted. Okay, so let's go to the next one. Now, okay, so are you loving that? It's a great composition. Now, it's called Aria by the great John Cage, and he decides to go the opposite direction. While composers like Schoenberg and Boulez, they had embraced this idea of serialism. It says, how about if we instead try to remove control from the composer, so that maybe the composer is not going to be absolutely in control of everything that is happening in the composition. So if you were to look at the score, you will see just lines and different colors. He actually painted the score with different colors, and the colors indicate different sounds for the voices. And he's using multiple languages. You know, he's using German, he's using English, he's using Italian. But the score is really very freely, so it allows the performers to improvise. But this, of course, is the avant-garde of the second half of the 20th century. And in particular, in this second half of the 20th century, there is a reaction right after the war, where composers felt that the foundations of Western classical music were not really stable, and they had to do something. And the solution would be to embrace objective art. So embrace equations, embrace experimental art, embrace something which is really abstract. Beauty, irrelevant. Passion, irrelevant. A melody that you can sing, completely irrelevant. Rhythms that you can snap to, no. It's all about experimenting with this new kind of art that is not passionate, it's not beautiful, it's all about trying to push the boundaries of music. Okay, so let's go to the next one. Okay, so if you recall what I said about German composers, German and Austrian composers, here we have another example. Now, from Mozart and Haydn, and then Beethoven, and then you have many other composers, Mendelssohn and Schumann, and then you have Wagner, and then you move on to Mahler and Richard Strauss, and then Schoenberg. And then we get Stockhausen. So you have this lineage of German composers, and they really thought that they were carrying on the torch of pushing the evolution of music. And Stockhausen actually, he saw himself as part of this lineage. And of course, his music is extremely experimental, the notation is very, very complex, and he's using amplified sounds. So at this point, we are dealing with something which actually repels audiences. Okay? In order to appreciate something like this, you will probably need to take one course, one entire semester, trying to convince you of the values and the message and the purpose and the goals of the composition like this. Okay, but otherwise, would you really play this in your living room? Right? Would you have this in your iTunes collection? Well, I would. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Does anyone know why I have that photo on this slide? I don't know if you do recognize it. This is a scene from the sequence that we know as the Stargate from the movie 2001. It's the Kubrick movie. And he actually uses this music as part of that. Kubrick had the tendency of choosing existing classical music compositions for his films instead of hiring a composer to write a sound score. So of course, it's actually related to that. And here we have, of course, more experimentation and part of this process that we know as modernism. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. And this one, of course, requires a little bit of explanation why I have a mushroom cloud there. The piece is called Trinity for the victims of Hiroshima. So these pieces that I've been playing, they are regarded as masterpieces of the second half of the 20th century. Really very important, monumental compositions. And of course, it's because of the experimentation and the idea of coming up with something like this. It's really monumental, in my opinion. Okay, now we're going to take a leap of faith. Look at his birth date, 1923, and then let's move to the next slide. 1933, and now to Terry Riley, 1935. Okay, so the music sounds like it's coming from a different century. However, we're talking about contemporary artists. So how do we get there? It's a big difference, right? From the music of Penderecki and Ligeti and Stockhausen to a music like this, which really is still kind of absolutely not commercial, but it's approachable. And we can feel a collection of notes which sounds again tone. As a matter of fact, his best known composition is in C, as in the note C. And it's a composition that really exploits the note C. And you're supposed to be playing that, of course, it actually goes and it veers a little bit beyond C, but it's, again, trying to reconstruct tonality. So how do we get to this point? And it happens very, very quickly. In a matter of a few years, a number of composers, they start to experiment with new ways of making music and new ways of thinking about music. So let's go to the next one. That's C right.
He began to warm up fever. He said, after a while, it's going to rain after a while. For 40 days and for 40 nights. And the people didn't believe it. And they began to laugh at him. And they began to mock him. And they began to say, it ain't going to rain. It's going to rain, 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 it's going to rain.
Now you can see here, it's real to real, tape player.
It's going to rain, 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 it's going to
Okay, very experimental, yes, I know that. Now, he discovered that by having two tape players at the same time with the second and same recording, he would just play at the same time. Because of the mechanical imperfections between them, they would actually go out of sync, and then completely out of sync, and eventually they would just fall back in sync, and then slightly out of sync, and so on. He discovered that. It was kind of like a happy accident. And he decided to start composing music, notated to exploit that. And that's going to be the next one. Violin phase. Okay, but you can hear the music is again tonal. Right? You can feel that collection of notes very stable. It doesn't sound romantic and angular before. And there is a sense of pulse. At this point you can hear the two instruments just flowing slightly out of phase. Okay, let's go to the next one. This is from an opera called Einstein on the What a name, right?
1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So now we are already into the late 70s and early 80s. And this is the style that, of course, we know as minimalism. Use of minimal material, and you keep repeating that over and over and over to create drums. And you then change the pattern over time. And that creates that sense of pulse. Okay, next one. This is Ligeti again. The same composer who wrote that piece for 2001. Notice the difference. It's now being influenced by minimalism. So yes, it does sound very modern, but now it's much more approachable. You know, it has a tonal center to it, and the harmonies are, you know, within reach. Okay, so let's go to the next one. And here we have post-minimalism, taking the ideas of minimalism and making them into a more mature style where you are free to bring in many different elements from the classical music tradition. Melodies, you can make the sound much more symphonic. Here we are, well into the 1980s. Okay. course, this one is the remixed version, released, I think, maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Okay, then finally, I'm going to play.
To the side.
To the side.
Basically, very recent composition.
To the side.
One
To
that
the
was
side.
surprised.
To the side.
I think 3 years
Through the
ago.
midland.
To the side.
To the side.
To the side.
To the side.
Turn around.
And around and around
And
It's
around.
called Paquita, by the way.
2, 3, 4,
5.
6, 7, 8.
Through the midpoint.
Have the light drawn from the left side.
5, 6. Element up and around.
Okay, so it's experimental. People are talking over it. At the same time, it's a composition that you really get it. Harmonies is very So we have a new modernity here. So we have a new generation that they have crossed over the abyss, and maybe they're trying to eliminate the abyss. Now, my point is that when people think of the music of the 20th century and contemporary music and modern music, they tend to think of this music which is really far away and is on the other side of this big chasm. It's across the abyss. And it's music that you may not be able to understand, but do be aware that we have this generation of composers like John Adams and Caroline Shaw that are writing music that is still very complex, very experimental, and is gaining a lot from the tradition of classical music, but at the same time it's music that you can really get. It's music that you can easily digest, and it's music you can fall in love with, which is something that it's hard to say maybe about Stockhausen and the early music of Ligeti and some of the music by Schoenberg. I'm not discounting the value of that music. The music is really historical, it's extremely important, but in terms of really appreciating and falling in love with the music, we really needed to go through that process, and now we have this new generation of composers. So please do go out there and do searches on YouTube. John Adams, by the way, there are 2 big John Adams composers, John Collins Adams and John Luther Adams, and they are both American living post-minimalist composers. Okay, so we have that. So do a search, and then on the related links, you may get links to other living contemporary composers. Okay, so thank you so much.